Okay, get ready. Now it's going to get really real. We're in the downhill portion. God had a plan before time began. Here's a little cartoon I made. It says, class, let's show Principal Jones just how simple it is to save the world. What is $100 quadrillion divided by 100 billion? That's the basic equation to determine the price for XRP. There's only one question to determine XRP's price. Because remember, XRP isn't the beginning of the equation, it's the answer to the equation. So XRP is A, which is all the money, divided by B, which is the number of tokenized assets, and that equals the price of XRP. So the question is, how much money / assets will go onto the XRPL QFS? And the answer is all the money. Now, the only difference in this equation is what value are we going to put on all the money? Now, 100 quadrillion in base 10 is more than enough to provide unlimited equity to the global markets. I've already got all the numbers. I've run all the numbers. I've tested all the numbers. And the number of transactions that actually would occur are not as big as we think. Now, you have to remember, and we're going to get to this in a second, there's some things that you have to understand about quantum realm, okay? This is a chart that I put together, one of the first charts I showed Jimmy Valley, on how we understand base 10 mathematics, 8th grade math, and how it's worked in the financial markets. 10 to the first, 10 to the second, 10 to the third, 10 to the fourth, 10 to the fifth. And this larger square is what consumes 10 to the sixth. And that's $1 million. So we know that there was a 7,885 year contract that expired 12/21 of 20. We know that there's a sevenfold blessing in Proverbs 6:30 through 31. And we know that it returns everything stolen in your lineage going all the way back to Adam and Eve. Now, how does that happen? It happens because God put the Asian elders in charge of his storehouse on earth. Remember I told you that they had over 100 quadrillion metric tons of gold stored and mined and stored already? Well, that was 5 years ago. Now they have an unlimited amount that they can tap into at any time. I mean, unlimited, people. Gold comes from deep, deep, deep within the center of the earth, and it replenishes itself, just like oil does. So God knew what it was going to take to buy back our freedom, to buy us out of debt, to buy the entire human population out of debt. And he chose the Asian elders, the white dragon family, to be the keepers of all of that until the described time, which is now. They have put that money, that gold, up to pay for Nasara Jasara, to pay for the XRP buyback, to pay for everything. There isn't a single government that has had to put up 1 penny. Now, are you going to see that on the national news? Are you going to see anybody else talking about that? No, you won't. Because they don't understand the full plan. Now, it's important to talk about those other things, but at some point, you have to kind of flip the script. And you have to take a look at what's most important. We are not going to change God's plan. It's going to play out exactly as he created it, because it was already created. So there's no use in spending a lot of time and energy talking about stuff that at the end of the day, we can't change because it's God's plan for his purpose. But what can we talk about? We can talk about how God paid for all this before the beginning of time. We can talk about how now I've told you more than once that there's no shortage of gold. Every single ounce of gold that was taken out of the Vatican tunnels, Charlie Ward arranged the logistics and helped fly it all out. Over 650 cargo planes. What was in Switzerland tunnel, not including what was in the tunnels in Buckingham Palace. That in itself $43 quintillion. That's a 4 with 19 zeros. The Asian elders signed over 45 quattrodecillion, which is 1 with 45 zeros, to the U.S. Treasury Department on July 4th, 2022. All 209 nations signed the Nassar-Jassara Agreement on Thanksgiving Day, November 24th, 2022 in Geneva, Switzerland. Trump was there. So there's no, how do I want to put this? Let's say it the right way. Father, thank you for giving me the words, the comforting words. There's no worries, people. There's no doubt. If you know how much of a loving Father he is, that he would already do this, and all we have to do is give him praise and thanksgiving, it certainly makes our life a whole lot easier. Why? Because as we go forward, it's about love. He's created a foundation of love. His currency is love. And that's why he's making this available. That's why he's making the money available for the Zim bonds. The Asian elders agreed to buy back all of the Zim bonds that are presented at the redemption centers on behalf of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. They bought all the assets above the ground from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Why would they do that? Because they were designated by God to be a storehouse on earth. Plain and simple. And they loaned that money to the Committee of 300 to grow it because they had to pay back with compound interest. And they loaned it, and they loaned it, and they loaned it, and they were great stewards. And they protected it. They loaned it. They loaned it. And now they know it's time to present it, to buy back our freedom. So the sooner we can accept what God has already done, the faster we'll see this manifest before us. Now, we are days, 2 weeks, 2 months away. We don't give dates. We identify dates for cycles, but we know that on dates, specific events happen. So it's event driven. There was something major happened on January 11th. And you can go read about it in my posts. Okay. Now is the time that we're gonna rip the bandage off. Back in the valuation committee, I was on the valuation committee for the first 2 valuations that I came to the conclusions for Jimmy Valley to present to the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury Department. Those numbers continued to increase as more information was made, until ultimately they got to this value right here because of the quantum aspect. These three gentlemen in October of 2022 won the highest achievement award in physics. They won the Nobel Peace Prize. And here's what they did. This was so awesome when it happened. They proved that the fifth dimension, the quantum realm, is not limited by the speed of light, as Einstein proposed. But quite the opposite is our new reality. It already knows what is needed, so it is. What they proved was if we needed transactions to go to the XRPL in the quantum realm, which is where it resides, it was created out of time and given to us in time. It's ancient technology. It's megalithic financial structure. It's a quantum consciousness. If it needed to do 100 quadrillion transactions per second, the fifth dimension, remember, can move forward and backward in time. It can only move one direction. It can't be, in both places. So it can move into the third dimension, knowing what's going to happen, what's going to happen in the third dimension. And because it already knows, the moment it needed to be done, it was already done. Kind of like when we talk about God. God already created everything. He's not creating because he already created it. I know that's kind of a deep subject, but whatever it needs to be, it is. And I remember having this discussion with Jimmy Valley when the Lord was just, raining me down with this revelation. And I'm trying to understand it. Get a grip on it. It was like, I had a dream, and I told Jimmy this. I said, Jimmy, I had this dream where I was in a room. There were three gentlemen on my right. I couldn't see them, but Einstein was at the chalkboard, and they were telling him, we have to get rid of the E. We have to get rid of the E. And I'm standing there. No one can hear me or see me, and I'm almost screaming, we can't get rid of the E. We can't get rid of the E. Well, now I understand what that dream was all about. It was about these three gentlemen. Now, that dream was in 2021. So what do I know now? God gave me this equation, and this is what he said. He said the universal speed limit in 5D, it's the speed of light in orders of magnitude. Now, let me just stop right there. It's the speed of light in orders of magnitude. And you may remember some of my posts before. I've only heard two people use the term orders of magnitude. One was God. The other was Brad Garlinghouse. He has 2 interviews where he talks about orders of magnitude, and they were decodes. And I've reported on those. I posted on those. They're in my videos. Orders of magnitude of infinity. So here's the equation. The function of X, and what's X? XRP. How many transactions? Do you know why it's only a 50-cent token? Because it wasn't made to run on a crappy earthly internet. It was designed and functioned in the quantum realm. So if you think about it, it's kind of like you have a Ferrari, and in your neighborhood, you can only drive in first gear. And you can never go outside your neighborhood. So you have all that horsepower and all those gears, and you can never go faster than 20 miles an hour. What's your car really worth to somebody in the neighborhood? It's not worth much of anything. And that's why the value of XRP can't rise above a certain value. And that value is $1.21. Because at $1.21, the value in the sevenfold blessing is $1 million price for XRP. So if XRP was ever going to have a high, that's what it would be. Based upon any bit of information that might come out. So the energy component is the tool that allows for the access to the quantum realm. That's XRP. It's the master key. It opens up the portal for all the transactions to be reported, recorded, and stored. That's the function of the XRPL. And it allows for the liquidity to move in and out. You can't get to the liquidity without XRP. Now, they won't talk about the XRPL. Why? Because they can't. I'm the only one that talks about the XRPL. Go check it out. Brad doesn't talk about it. David doesn't talk about it. It's the 800-pound gorilla in the room that everybody pretends doesn't exist. Why? Because you can't know this yet. But if you're following along with the revelation God's dropping, you're getting a firsthand peek behind the curtain to understand what God has already created and where we're going. So the crap doesn't come in. The cabal, terminated. Evil, done with. No more stealing, killing, and destroying of God's children. This right here is worth its weight in gold. And it's not because I put it together, but it's because God gave me the revelation. And I probably spent at least a week and a half on this slide, just getting it just right so you can see it. And of course, who's in the middle? Jesus. So drill down on that.